Alex sat in the same place he always did, a small apartment on the top floor of a crumbling building on the outskirts of the city. The glow of the screens illuminated his face as his fingers moved swiftly over the keyboard, his eyes scanning the code like a conductor guiding a digital symphony. To an outsider, it seemed like just another routine night. He made his living by hacking corporate systems and selling the information. Nothing too grand. But tonight, something felt different, like an electrical current in the air, tense and waiting to discharge. His latest job was seemingly simple. The target, a private security company called OmniSec, known for providing advanced technology to governments and elite corporations. They paid fortunes to ensure no one could breach their systems. Except Alex. For him, breaking through firewalls was an art, a puzzle waiting to be solved. After a few minutes of manipulating the code, he found a vulnerability and accessed OmniSec servers. The usual information scrolled across the screen: security contracts, client records, surveillance protocols. But then, something caught his eye, something that shouldn't have been there. A hidden file. Algorithm Delta X. Interesting, Alex muttered as he clicked to open the file. Instead of the usual code, he saw something that didn't make immediate sense. It looked like a predictive model, complex calculations and equations. But as he studied it more carefully, certain details stood out: dates, locations, and events. Typing quickly, Alex ran the algorithm. The screen blinked, and a list began to form before his eyes. Robberies, homicides, terrorist attacks. All scheduled to happen in the near future. Alex froze. Each predicted crime came with precise coordinates, exact times. It was as if the algorithm could foresee the future. His stomach turned. What the hell was this? Curiosity, mixed with a touch of fear, pushed him to test it. One of the predicted crimes was a bank robbery scheduled to take place in just a few hours, right in the heart of the city. Alex knew he should ignore it, but the temptation was too strong. He had to see if the algorithm was real or if this was all just some elaborate hoax. In a matter of minutes, he was on the subway, heading downtown. The air was muggy with that strange, quiet tension that only a late city night could bring. When he arrived at the bank, he positioned himself discreetly in a nearby alley and waited. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. He began to think he had been fooled. But then, 3 hooded men stepped out of a black car and started moving toward the bank's entrance. Alex held his breath. The clock showed the exact time predicted by the algorithm. It was real. The robbers quickly entered the building, and Alex, without thinking, pulled out his phone and called the police. He wasn't sure why he was doing it, perhaps the shock of seeing the future unfold before his eyes. He only knew he had to act. Within minutes, the police arrived, catching the criminals in the act. Alex quickly slipped away, his heart racing, trying to process what had just happened. He had stumbled upon a code that could predict criminal events. But something inside him told him this wasn't a blessing. He had walked into something much bigger and more dangerous than he could comprehend. Back in his apartment, Alex sat in front of his screens, his thoughts racing. The algorithm was real, and now he was a part of it. He knew he had uncovered something monumental but also something dangerous. Who else knew about this? And more importantly, who was willing to kill for it? Before he could find answers, an alert appeared on his screen. Someone was trying to breach his system. This wasn't normal. Not for Alex, who prided himself on his unbreakable digital fortress. Someone was tracking him. And fast. His hands flew over the keyboard, trying to shut down the attack. But it was too late. He barely had time to react before a new window popped up, this time with a clear message: "We know who you are." Alex felt panic rise inside him. They knew. And now, he was being hunted. The sound of the message echoed in his mind as Alex stared at the screen, frozen. "We know who you are." It was a simple phrase, but packed with terrifying implications. He had hacked into hundreds of systems before, but no one had ever managed to trace him like this. Who were these people? His heart raced as he quickly began erasing his digital footprints, deleting files, and shutting down any exposed connections. But the feeling of being watched lingered. Sweat formed on his palms as he frantically worked. Suddenly, he heard a faint sound at the door, a soft click, the kind you only hear when someone is trying to pick a lock without being noticed. A surge of adrenaline shot through him. They were here. Without thinking twice, Alex grabbed the backpack he always kept ready, filled with his laptop and a few emergency tools, and bolted for the fire escape window. Climbing down the rusty ladder as fast as he could hear the heavy footsteps of the intruders getting closer. He had to move fast. Without thinking twice, Alex grabbed the backpack he always kept ready, filled with his laptop and a few emergency tools, and bolted for the fire escape window. Climbing down the rusty ladder as fast as he could hear the heavy footsteps of the intruders getting closer. He had to move fast. Once on the ground, Alex sprinted through the narrow, dark streets, his mind racing. Who were these people? The Graviton, the mysterious organization behind Omnisec, clearly wanted the algorithm back, and they were willing to do whatever it took to get it. Now, he was their prime target. After an hour of dodging through alleys and avoiding main roads, Alex found temporary refuge in a small, abandoned warehouse. It was a place hackers like him had used as a hideout in the past. He knew it well and hoped it would keep him safe for now. Inside, the warehouse was silent, the only sound being his own footsteps echoing through the empty space. Finding a dark corner, Alex opened his laptop again. He needed answers, and he needed them fast. The Oracle. The name had appeared several times in the files he had stolen. It wasn't just some leader, it was the mind behind everything, the one controlling the algorithm. Whoever or whatever the Oracle was, they were manipulating more than just petty crimes. What Alex had stumbled upon was just the tip of the iceberg. The Graviton was part of something much bigger, something global. But then, a noise from the warehouse entrance shattered his concentration. Quickly shutting his laptop, Alex grabbed his bag and pressed himself against the wall. They had found him. His pulse quickened, and the realization hit him hard, this wasn't just about survival anymore. He had become a player in a game he didn't understand, and the Oracle was watching every move he made. Night had fully settled, and Alex moved with caution, senses sharp as he left the warehouse, slipping out just before the intruders arrived. Now hiding in an abandoned building at the edge of the city, he opened his laptop once more, knowing he needed to confront the overwhelming reality that surrounded him. The Oracle. The name lingered in his mind, over and over. Who was this person who controlled the algorithm? And, more importantly, what was the real purpose behind this powerful tool? Sitting on the dusty floor, surrounded by broken furniture and the glow of his monitor, Alex dove back into the code. He needed to push the algorithm further to understand its true potential. Adjusting the parameters and inputting new data, he let the system run again. The screen flickered as it processed. Once again, the future began to unfold before his eyes. But this time, it wasn't just small crimes. The predictions now revealed something far more significant, a global economic crisis, set off by a series of carefully orchestrated events, contract manipulations, financial fraud, and corporate actions, all tied to the Graviton. The collapse was already in motion, and Alex realized he was looking at something immense. The algorithm wasn't just a tool for predicting crimes, it was a weapon capable of dismantling entire systems. Fear gripped him as he realized the weight of what he was seeing. If he did nothing, the world as he knew it would fall apart. But one question still burned in his mind: how did the Oracle plan to use this crisis? There had to be a larger goal, something beyond mere economic power. As he pondered these questions, his phone buzzed. A message flashed on the screen from an unknown number: "You're stepping into dangerous territory, Alex. Get out while you can." His heart skipped a beat. They were watching. Frantically, Alex typed back, "Who are you?" But, as expected, no reply came. Fear and adrenaline coursed through him. There was nowhere left to hide. They were tracking his every move, and one wrong step could be his last. So why hadn't they acted directly? That question gnawed at him. Perhaps there was a reason the Oracle hadn't simply sent someone to kill him on the spot. Maybe, in a twisted way, he was being tested. Or perhaps there was a flaw in the algorithm. With that thought, Alex focused on the code once again. Looking closer, he saw something he hadn't noticed before. The algorithm seemed most effective at predicting large-scale, systematic events, organized crimes, economic moves, corporate actions. But when it came to individual, unpredictable human decisions, like the ones Alex had been making over the last several hours, the system struggled. There was a gap. The Oracle relied too heavily on the precision of the machine, but that reliance was also its weakness. A new wave of hope surged through him. His unpredictability was his greatest strength. If he could continue to operate outside the system's patterns, it would be harder for the algorithm to foresee his next move. Maybe he still had a chance. But as he began to formulate a plan, something on the screen caught his attention. Among the predictions, a new event appeared: a series of assassinations, carefully orchestrated by the Graviton, including his own name among the victims. Alex was now marked to die within the next few hours, part of a larger operation to eliminate anyone who posed a threat to the collapse. "I'm next," he whispered to himself, the grim reality crashing over him. A chilling sense of helplessness took hold. The algorithm knew where he'd be, how he'd react, and when it would be the perfect moment to take him out. He had to act fast, and he had to act outside of its predictions. Suddenly, the sound of soft footsteps echoed through the abandoned room. Alex froze, his body instinctively tense. Someone was there with him. "Stop right there," a low, firm voice called from the shadows. When he turned, he saw the silhouette of a man dressed in black, a gun visible at his side. "You've caused us a lot of problems, Alex. I think it's time we end this." Alex held his breath. This wasn't just another agent. He was face to face with someone from the Graviton. Fear mixed with adrenaline flooded his system, but he knew fighting or running wasn't the solution. "What do you want?" Alex asked, trying to keep his voice calm, his eyes locked on the man standing before him. The agent stepped forward, a cold smile on his face. "You found something you weren't supposed to. Now, we're here to fix that mistake." Alex inhaled deeply, his mind racing. But before he could say anything more, the man tilted his head slightly, as if listening to an unseen voice. Slowly, he stepped back, as if receiving new instructions. "You're clever, Alex. But the Oracle has already seen it all. The game you're playing is far bigger than you realize. Enjoy your last few hours of life. We'll be watching the collapse together." And with that, the man disappeared into the shadows as quickly as he had arrived, leaving Alex standing alone, trying to comprehend what had just happened. They had spared him, for now. But Alex knew he couldn't rely on the Graviton's mercy. He had to stay one step ahead, and time was running out. The global collapse was in motion, and his only chance now was to face the Oracle head-on. The chill of the early morning air wrapped around Alex as he hurried through the dark streets. The city, with its flickering lights and occasional distant sirens, felt like it was conspiring against him. Every shadow, every corner, carried the weight of someone watching. The graviton was hunting him, but why? That question gnawed at his mind. The agent who had confronted him in the hideout had every opportunity to kill him, but didn't. What did that mean? Was the Oracle toying with him, or was there something else he still couldn't grasp? Lost in thought, Alex found refuge in a 24-hour cyber cafe. The place was nearly empty, save for a few young gamers engrossed in their screens, oblivious to the world outside. He settled into a dark corner, opening his laptop once more. He needed more answers. The Oracle. That name kept appearing everywhere he looked. It wasn't just the leader of Graviton, it was the mind behind everything, the one controlling the algorithm. But there wasn't a single photo, no concrete data about who the Oracle really was. It was as if the Oracle was a ghost, always present, but never visible. Alex began to wonder if the Oracle was truly a person, or if it was something bigger, a machine, maybe, or a system that everyone in the Graviton followed blindly. The more he dug, the less sense it all made. It was like reality itself was slipping through his fingers. Then, something flashed on the screen. Among the data he was analyzing, a pattern began to emerge, predictions from the algorithm. Alex had left it running in the background, watching as future events were calculated in real time by the Graviton. Every second, new predictions appeared. Small crimes, financial fraud, market manipulations, and then, a name, Oracle. Typing quickly, Alex cross-referenced past operations with upcoming predictions. That's when he saw it, the beginning of the global collapse was directly tied to the Oracle. The financial crisis he had seen was being triggered by a series of strategic moves, all connected to this mysterious figure. The Oracle wasn't just predicting the future, they were actively shaping it for their own purposes. And the collapse wasn't an accident. It was planned. Alex's breath caught in his throat as he processed the magnitude of what he was uncovering. The Oracle didn't just want control over chaos, they were creating a calculated chaos, a global collapse that would redistribute power and wealth in ways only they could anticipate. And anyone in the way of that plan, including Alex, would be eliminated. The message was clear: either he destroyed the algorithm, or the world would fall into the hands of one manipulator. With his heart pounding, Alex began formulating a plan. The Graviton's headquarters was a fortress, and infiltrating it would be suicide without proper preparation. But he knew that if he wanted to dismantle the algorithm and stop the collapse, he would have to face the Oracle directly. Now more than ever, he was convinced that the Oracle couldn't predict his next actions. Whatever the Oracle was, it depended too much on the algorithm's mathematical precision. And Alex knew that humanity, with all its flaws and unpredictability, could be the key to defeating it. He pulled up a map of the city, identifying the location of the Graviton building. It was heavily secured, but he noticed one small detail: during critical operations, the security teams were often redirected to other areas. If he could time his infiltration with the right distraction, he'd have a small window to get in and destroy the core system. The plan was risky, but Alex was past the point of fear. Now, it was a matter of survival. He shut his laptop and stood up slowly, scanning the room to ensure no one was watching him. With his hood pulled low over his face, he slipped out of the cyber cafe and back into the shadowy streets. Time was running out, and he had less than 24 hours before the planned collapse would begin to tear the world apart. As he walked, his thoughts began to fall into place. He needed more information on the Oracle, and he knew the only way to get it was by confronting those who followed. The system was cracking, and the only way to break it completely was to find its foundation. And it all started with one word: control. Alex spent the next few hours gathering more data, plotting routes, calculating his next steps. The Graviton headquarters was protected by layers of advanced surveillance technology, making it seem impossible to get close. But Alex had dealt with similar systems before. He knew that, in the end, every piece of technology had a flaw. He just needed to find the right one. By the time dawn broke, Alex was ready. He had the plan, the tools, and, above all, the certainty that, somehow, he was operating outside the algorithm's predictions. The system couldn't predict the unpredictable, and Alex intended to be the variable the Oracle never considered. That night, Alex hid in an abandoned building just a few blocks from the Graviton headquarters. From his vantage point, he could see the bright lights of the imposing structure where, beyond those walls, the future was being written. He knew that once he stepped inside, there was no turning back. The global collapse was already in motion, and he would have only one chance to stop the catastrophe. If the Oracle was the ultimate manipulator, Alex was ready to become the factor that broke the equation. As the quiet night settled over the city, he made the final adjustments to his plan. The mission was clear: get in, access the heart of the algorithm, and destroy any trace of control over the future. And when he finally came face to face with the Oracle, he would have the answers he had been searching for. Alex felt the cold night air against his face as he watched the imposing Graviton building from a distance. The heart of the operation, the headquarters where the Oracle orchestrated the future. He was about to infiltrate one of the most heavily guarded places in the world, a fortress of advanced security, but also the place where he had a chance to dismantle the algorithm once and for all. The intel Alex had gathered over the past few hours indicated that the building would be momentarily vulnerable. Security teams would be redirected for a high-priority event in the next few hours, and that would be his opening. The clock was against him, but the element of surprise was still in his favor. As he moved toward the building, Alex pulled his hood up, trying to stay calm. His thoughts were clear: infiltrate, find the core of the system, and destroy the algorithm that was driving the collapse. He couldn't let the future fall into the hands of a single man. While making his way through the darkened streets toward the headquarters, Alex's mind wandered to a terrifying realization. What if the Oracle already knew he was coming? The thought had haunted him from the start. The algorithm could predict crimes, attacks, market movements. But what about individual decisions? Human choices? How far did the Oracle trust this power of prediction? Alex knew he was betting on the system's failure, that his ability to act outside the patterns made him less predictable. Reaching the security fence surrounding the Graviton building, Alex activated a small jammer he had acquired. The Graviton's technology was advanced, but it wasn't invulnerable. He knew a brief distraction, a momentary glitch in their surveillance system, could buy him enough time to slip through unnoticed. With agility, he scaled the fence and moved through the landscaped gardens that bordered the building. The exterior lights flickered sporadically, and he knew he had to be quick. Every second counted. Reaching the side entrance, he used an access code he had found in one of the encrypted files. When the door slid open silently, Alex held his breath and stepped inside. The air was cold and sterile, the only sound the faint hum of machines and systems running continuously. The interior was ultra-modern, long, empty corridors, rooms protected by glass panels and coated doors. But Alex had an idea of what he was looking for. The heart of the Graviton was in the lower levels, where the algorithm ran in real time, fed by a central data system. That's where he needed to go. As he descended the emergency stairwell, Alex recalled everything he had learned about the Oracle. A genius, yes, but someone obsessed with control. They had created a system that, for all intents and purposes, dictated the future. But there was a flaw in any such system: humans were unpredictable. Reaching the lowest level, Alex saw the server room. A thick metal door separated him from his target. He knew his time was running out. If security detected his presence, he wouldn't have enough time to shut down the system. Using the tools he had brought, he quickly worked on the door's access panel. His heart pounded, the tension making his hands sweat. When the lock finally disengaged, the door swung open with a soft click. Inside, the servers blinked with flashing lights, storing and processing the data that fed the algorithm. This was the heart of the future they had planned. Alex wasted no time. He rushed to the central terminal, connecting his device, the one he had programmed to deploy a virus that would destroy the algorithm. If everything went according to plan, in a few minutes, the graviton's control over the future would collapse. But before he could complete the process, the screen in front of him flickered. A message appeared, simple but chilling: "I knew you would come." Panic gripped him. The Oracle had anticipated his arrival. Whether they knew, or trusted blindly in the algorithm to predict it, Alex wasn't sure. Either way, he had no time to waste. He activated the program, and the lights around him began flickering erratically. The virus was working. But then, the door behind him creaked open. "You really think you can destroy all of this by yourself?" The calm voice echoed through the room. Alex turned, his body tense. It was the Oracle. To his surprise, the man standing before him wasn't some imposing figure. He looked ordinary, middle-aged, with a controlled and cold expression, but without the aura of genius Alex had imagined. But his eyes, there was something different in them. A calculated coldness. "The algorithm was wrong," Alex said, his voice steadier than he expected. "It can't predict everything." The Oracle smiled, a smile almost tinged with sadness. "You don't understand, Alex. The algorithm was only part of the process. I am the system." The weight of those words hit Alex harder than he expected. Could it be that the Oracle had become so intertwined with the system that control over the future didn't just rely on a machine, but on him? "You think you can walk out of here and the world will keep spinning without someone controlling it?" The Oracle took a step forward, his face dimly lit by the flickering lights. "The chaos you're so afraid of has already begun, and nothing you've done here today will stop it. I've already seen the future, Alex. The collapse is inevitable." Alex tried to suppress the growing fear inside him. The Oracle's words were too convincing, and he knew this man's confidence didn't come solely from the algorithm. There was something deeper, something that made the Oracle far more dangerous than any predictive system. "You can predict everything," Alex said, stepping back, his eyes watching every movement of the man in front of him. "But you can't predict human nature. And that's what's going to destroy you." Before the Oracle could respond, the sound of gunfire echoed from the hallways outside the Graviton's headquarters. Security agents were closing in, ready to stop Alex and possibly eliminate any remaining threat. He knew his time was running out. "You're predictable, Alex," the Oracle said with a faint smile. "You think your unpredictability makes you strong, but you've fallen into exactly the plan I laid out." Alex looked around, hearing the footsteps getting closer, and realized what the Oracle meant. He had been led here on purpose. The collapse of the system, the destruction of the algorithm, it was all part of a larger plan, a plan he hadn't foreseen. "You think you can escape now?" the Oracle asked, his eyes cold as ice. "I've already seen what's going to happen. No matter what you do, the chaos is already underway, and I'm the only one who can control it." Alex knew there was no more time to think. With one final, swift movement, he activated the final phase of his program, launching the virus that would obliterate the Graviton's central system completely. The lights around them began to flicker more intensely, and for the first time, Alex saw panic cross the Oracle's face for a brief moment. You won't leave here alive, the Oracle said, desperation creeping into his voice. Alex knew he was right, or at least partially right. The building was surrounded by graviton agents, and his chances of physically escaping were slim. But at that moment, all that mattered was ensuring the algorithm, the tool that controlled the future, was completely destroyed. Maybe not, Alex responded, his voice firm despite the fear gripping him, but if I go down, you're going down with me. The lights on the servers around them shut off one by one, and the room plunged into total darkness. The constant hum of the machines was replaced by the sound of alarms blaring as the entire system imploded. Alex's virus had done its job. The future was finally free from absolute control. But the silence was soon interrupted by the sounds of approaching agents. Alex knew he couldn't wait any longer. He turned and sprinted for the emergency exit, hearing the Oracle's shouts behind him. The man wouldn't go down without a fight, but Alex had done what he needed to do. The Oracle might believe he had won in some capacity, but the power he held over the future was now shattered. Reaching the emergency stairwell, Alex raced down as fast as he could, feeling the sweat run down his forehead. He knew the agents were right behind him, ready to take him out the moment they found him. But he had one advantage: the chaos he had just unleashed within the graviton would confuse their defenses, giving him just enough time to escape. Descending the final set of stairs, Alex burst through the emergency doors into the cold night air. He knew he had made it. He was free, for now. But the battle was far from over. What he had done inside that building would soon be felt around the world. The algorithm was gone, but the chaos it had triggered in the process would be something he'd have to face later. The future was no longer in the hands of one man or one machine. And while the consequences were unpredictable, he knew the real fight would be against the forces still operating in the shadows, now without a system to guide them. He needed allies. He needed more than just his own skills to fight what was coming. And as he crossed the desolate ground of the industrial area, a new plan began to form in his mind. Alex knew the future was open now. And, for the first time, that gave him an edge. If the Oracle could no longer predict what would happen next, then Alex was free to act in ways no one could anticipate. With that thought, he slipped into the shadows of the awakening city. The game had changed, and now it was time to start planning his next move. The cold breeze of dawn brought Alex a fleeting moment of relief, but the feeling was short-lived. The graviton building, now behind him, loomed like a dark monolith, still standing but stripped of its power. The algorithm was destroyed, but the weight of the consequences had only just begun to sink in. The streets around him were empty. The sound of sirens hadn't yet arrived, but he knew it wouldn't be long before police or even military forces flooded the area. The collapse was underway. The chaos that the Oracle had spoken of was beginning to take shape. And while Alex had broken the chains of graviton's control, the sense of victory felt hollow, like staring into the eye of a storm. The graviton agents weren't giving up. They were on his tail. In the darkness, Alex darted through the city streets, trying to keep distance between himself and his pursuers. His body was exhausted, but his mind stayed sharp, running on a mix of adrenaline and fear. He knew he wasn't completely safe yet. As he sprinted through alleys and crossed poorly lit streets, the distant rumble of vehicles reminded him to stay alert. They were combing the area, searching for him, and it was only a matter of time before they found him. Turning a corner, Alex spotted an underground subway station not far ahead. It was a chance. Even if the trains weren't running yet, he could use the tunnel system to lose them. It was his only option. He bolted down the stairs, hearing the footsteps growing louder behind him. Voices echoed in the streets, shouted orders and clipped commands. They were close, too close. The station was empty, the only light coming from dim emergency fixtures. The place was eerily quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos boiling inside him. Alex knew the subway tunnels would take him far from the Graviton building, but without a solid escape plan, he was only buying himself time. Walking along the tracks, the echo of his own footsteps kept him company in the dark, abandoned tunnel. His mind still buzzed with images of the last few hours. The Oracle, the destruction of the algorithm, the looming collapse. And then the inevitable thought, what comes next? After what felt like an eternity, Alex stopped, trying to catch his breath. He knew he couldn't keep running like this forever. At some point, he'd have to stop and think through his next move. He needed to leave the city, disappear, but how? With Graviton still operational in parts, they'd be monitoring every possible escape route. As he leaned against the tunnel wall, the sound of metal clinking in the distance sent a chill through him. Something, or someone, was moving down the tracks. They had followed him. Alex took off running again, pushing himself through the tunnel toward an emergency exit he knew was ahead. When he reached the door, he shoved it open, the cold morning air flooding over him. He emerged into an industrial area on the outskirts of the city, surrounded by abandoned warehouses and old factories. For a moment, he paused, taking in his surroundings. The sounds of footsteps had faded. At least for now, he had managed to shake his pursuers. But not for long. The chaos he knew was coming still weighed heavily on his mind. He had stopped the Oracle from controlling the future, but now the world was teetering on the edge of uncertainty. If the collapse Graviton had planned occurred anyway, millions would feel the aftermath. In a brief moment of clarity, Alex understood something he had overlooked before. Perhaps the Oracle had been counting on the destruction of the algorithm. Maybe, deep down, everything that had happened was part of the plan, and the chaos now unfolding was exactly what he had expected. The thought unsettled him. Could the Oracle have believed so deeply in the inevitability of destruction that he had calculated his own defeat into the process? If that were true, then Alex had to find another way to intervene. The destruction of the algorithm didn't mean Graviton was completely defeated. The Oracle could be preparing something even more devastating. But without the algorithm, Alex knew the game had changed. The future was no longer in the hands of one man or one machine. And though the consequences were unpredictable, he knew the real battle would be against the forces still operating behind the scenes, now without a system to guide them. He needed allies. He needed more than just his own abilities to face what was coming next. And as he walked through the desolate landscape of the industrial zone, a new plan began to take shape in his mind. Alex knew the future was open now. And for the first time, that gave him an advantage. If the Oracle couldn't predict what would happen, then Alex was free to act in ways no one could foresee. With that thought, he walked away, blending into the shadows of the awakening city. The game had changed, and now it was time to make his next move. The cold morning breeze brushed against Alex's face as he walked through the empty streets. The adrenaline that had fueled him throughout the night was beginning to fade, leaving behind a bitter sense of exhaustion and uncertainty. The algorithm was gone. The future, once tightly controlled by a few, had been freed. But instead of feeling victorious, Alex was haunted by the weight of what was coming next. He sat down on a park bench, watching as the first rays of sunlight began to illuminate the city. There was a strange peace here, a stillness that felt out of place given the chaos that was surely about to unfold. Chaos wasn't something that could be controlled, and Alex knew that now more than ever, the future was in the hands of the unpredictable. For a moment, he allowed himself to relax. The sounds of the city beginning to stir around him, the footsteps of early commuters, the distant rumble of engines, seemed almost surreal. For everyone else, this would be just another day. But Alex knew nothing would ever be the same again. His mind kept replaying the words the Oracle had spoken. The chaos is already in motion. Even without the algorithm, Graviton had set the wheels of a global crisis in motion, and what Alex had destroyed wouldn't be enough to stop the fallout. The collapse that was coming would be like an earthquake, shaking the foundations of economies and lives, and no one could predict what would come next. He pulled out his phone for the first time in hours, switching it back on. He expected to see news headlines exploding with the events of the Graviton's collapse, the destruction of the algorithm, the fall of an empire. But instead, the news was quieter, more ominous. Markets were beginning to fall. Small headlines announced the start of a financial crisis, just as the algorithm had predicted. Graviton no longer needed the algorithm. The damage was already done. Alex closed his eyes for a moment, feeling the weight of his choices pressing down on him. He had destroyed the tool that controlled the future, but now the world was facing the consequences of that collapse. Millions would be affected, lives would be ruined, and the uncertainty he had feared was now staring him in the face. Had he done the right thing? As those questions tormented him, Alex realized that the real question wasn't whether he had acted correctly, but whether he had any other choice. The world needed to be freed from that absolute control, but the price of that freedom was high. And he, more than anyone, knew there was no going back. Around him, the news continued to unfold. More market crashes, more signs of disorder. The global collapse was happening. But despite it all, a new feeling began to rise within him. The future, though uncertain, now belonged to the people. No longer was there a single entity shaping events to its own advantage. Choices, however chaotic and unpredictable, were back in the hands of humanity. In a strange way, that thought comforted him. The Oracle had believed that order could only exist through total control, but Alex knew that was an illusion. The real strength of the future lay in its unpredictability, in the ability of people to make decisions no machine, no algorithm, could ever foresee. He stood up, stretching his tired muscles, and began to walk slowly through the streets, now fully illuminated by the rising sun. The weight of what he had done still hung over him, but something had changed. He was at peace. The future might be uncertain, but at least it wouldn't be decided by one man or one machine. It would be everyone's future. Alex knew his fight wasn't over. Graviton still existed, perhaps fragmented, perhaps weakened, but its influence reached far beyond anything he could imagine. The Oracle had fallen, but the ideas he represented might still survive. He thought about the people he had met, the lives that had been impacted by the relentless predictions of the algorithm. The chaos was only beginning, but in time, Alex believed that something new would rise from the ruins of the old system. The collapse would give way to new opportunities, new beginnings. And though Alex couldn't predict what would come next, he knew he was ready. The future finally belonged to the unpredictable, and, in a way, that brought him comfort. He continued to walk through the now bustling city, the world around him slowly coming to life. Alex had freed the future, but the real question was what he would do with that freedom. Maybe it was time to disappear, to let the chaos run its course. Or maybe, at some point, he would return, to fight again in a world where choices were free. With one last glance at the horizon, Alex walked away. The future was open, and for the first time in a long time, he was at peace with that.